Good evening, C3 parents. I'm your coach, Karien, and welcome. It is really awesome seeing you. And tonight, we are going to talk about parenting being in the stretch. Now, all of us, especially lately, have been having fairly ups and downs with our parenting. We've had days where we think, oh my word, what am I doing? I'm ruining my kid, or that we feel so disconnected from our spouses, from our kids, that everything seems to be falling apart. Now, in tonight's chat, we will be covering two specific things, two specific concepts that I want you to hold on to when it comes to parenting is in the stretch. Now, if you can just give me a moment, I just need to grab my notes so that I actually stick to the topic. All right, so um, something I don't know if you've seen my social media, I've been posting that I've actually started jogging. And one of the things that I've discovered that the days that I do not stretch, the next couple of days I'm stiff, I'm sore. Who would have thunk? All those stretches we did in school after exercises actually served a purpose. But that stiffness and that pain and whatever kind of demotivates you to continue, the next day. You're stiff, you're sore, you don't really feel like exercising at, the next day. If you feel that way, if you feel icky, you don't want to participate. So a lot of times when we parent, we focus on, okay, we need to get this right, and we like go through the motions of the day. We forget to check in on ourselves, we forget to check in on the kids. We have this whole process of, a checklist. Okay, we need to brush teeth, we need to do bed, we go through the whole checklist, and before we wipe our eyes out, our kids are in bed at night, and it's the end of the day. We kick up our feet and we're like, another day that I kept the kids alive. And the next day, the cycle continues and the cycle continues. And slowly but surely, there's this distance that starts coming between our kids, the stiffness. And because there's no connection, no stretching to connect with our kids, that there becomes a less and less of a motivation to connect, less and less of motivation to spend time together. We kind of step away from each other, and the relationship becomes more and more difficult, less flexible. Our children are less compliant. Their resilience actually suffers from this disconnect. Our resilience starts suffering from this disconnect. And so we have to stretch. We have to, after any form of exercise, any day, we have to find ways to reconnect. We have to find ways to keep on stretching, stretching over that divide, stretching over that distance, stretching over that age gap, stretching into their space. Because if I cannot touch my toes, obviously I am not limber enough, or limber, no, limber enough. The same with our kids. If I cannot stretch, if I cannot just push that little bit more to be there and be in the moment with my kids, we create that little bit less of a stretch and that little bit of less of being able to reach each other. And it takes a long journey and a long road actually to get back to that. Um, when it comes from our children's side, when they are starting behaving disconnected, when they are starting to misbehave, instead of having our focus on discipline and all of that, we also need to remember that there's a second type of stretch that happens. Our children are growing and developing and maturing a brain. They are learning new life skills every single day of their life. Even how often have you as an adult said, well, you're never too old to learn something new. When something surprises you, when you learn something new, or when you discovered something that you thought was a truth is not a truth, and you actually learn more about life. Our children are inundated every single day with new information, a better understanding, especially as their brain matures, especially as how that neural network starts being built and grows, and all of those things. That sometimes they will withdraw into their own little space, and they actually become difficult to reach. It feels like we parent the same thing over and over and over again, and it feels like there's no breakthrough, as if you're talking to a wall. We need to stretch in that situation as well. We need to reach towards them. We need to calm down. And instead of immediately jumping to the horrifying things that where your kid might end up one day, instead of seeing them in jail, we need to see them as human beings that is busy growing and busy developing and busy learning new things. And maybe their pulling back is their mind pausing for a moment and just trying to put everything into a perspective, everything into a place where they can process and deal with it. A lot of times we have kids that needs to actually cocoon themselves, withdraw from the community, or withdraw from society in a sense, so that they can process what they've learned, so that they can apply what they've learned. And then we've got kids that almost suffers from verbal diarrhea because that's how they process. And we need to find a way to be limber enough to be able to listen to not just what's coming out of their mouth, but out of their body language. But never stop reaching over, never stop trying to connect. We always have an open invitation. Like, we've got a verbal processor, and then we've got a internal processor, and our constant narrative to them is, if you don't feel like talking right now, just know that when you're ready to share, I'm here to listen. And the same with the discipline, the same with breaking the rules, having mature conversations with our kids, sitting down and saying, okay, we are working at this this particular point in time. I can see you're trying. We're not reaching the goal. How can we reach the goal? How can we work together to get there? Does that mean that I need to take some of your responsibilities off your shoulders? Do we rein in some of your freedoms until we know that you've mastered this before we add more? Are you going through something difficult that you cannot verbalize, but you're busy acting it out with your body, with your behavior? How can I support you? I'm here to listen. I'm here to hear what you have to say. I'm interested in you. Um, and so often, when we get to a point where we do the exercise, we run, but we never stretch. We run the day, but we never stretch to connect. Um, our kids starts feeling lost, and they feel like they can't reach us, and they can't share with us, and they can't actually connect with us. And the interesting thing, and we've experienced it now since the move. I'm soon going to release a blog. You can check the link down below. It will probably be out tomorrow. So the link will be to the blog will be down below in the description. There we go. My brain just had a freeze. Um, when we have these discussions with our kids, when we moved, it was just tick boxes in my head. It's like, we need to do this, we need to, like, sort out the schools, we need to sort out this, we need to sort out this. And then every now and again I'm like, oh darn it, it's been a week and I haven't really spent time with the kids, so I need to pause and try to spend time with the kids, but then the things don't get done. And so it's basically half doing what we're supposed to be doing. And in that whole process, disconnection started taking shape. And in the blog, I share the process that I'm approaching to try and reconnect with our kids. But the interesting thing is, the more disconnected we get with our kids, the more punishment driven we parent, the more punitive we actually start parenting, because then we are constantly parenting from a position of survival, in survival mode. So we consistently then parent from a position of, you have to learn this lesson, I'm really worried, and you have to. It's like, you have to, instead of stepping back and taking a breath and going, but you know what, my child is busy processing, they're pausing, they need time to process what has been going on. And the irony is, the more I started focusing on the tick boxes and the more I started being the parent that I don't want to be, the more outside factors kept on trying to tell me pause, stretch, take a deep breath, and spend time with your kid. Pause, stretch, they are still small, reconnect. Um, and it became such a big mess that I had Hubitron actually stepping in and having a conversation with me. That I also had this moment while running where I'm like, Mom, but you know these things. You know you need to remain connected. You know you need to stop worrying about 10 years from now and start focusing on the here and now, the minute, right now, not the 10 minutes, not from now, the 1 hour from now. Um, you need to organize your brain and you need to pause and you need to stretch and you need to spend time just taking things slow. So I've done everything, calmed down, and we are working at reconnecting. And it's slowly but surely we're getting back to how it used to be. It's not going to be okay overnight. The same like if you haven't stretched for a whole week and you all of a sudden do stretch, um, you're not going to be like be able to touch your toes immediately. It's going to take a couple of times, a couple of stretches to get there. The same process with reconnecting with our kids. Um, but the nice thing about the stretch is there's growth. There's growth for me as a parent. There's growth for our kids. There is grace. And in that stretch, in that growth, in that learning curve, we actually move forward. We get to a point where we can say, but we can do this. And we take that one step forward and we know another step forward. And this constant exercising of connection creates a habit and it teaches us a habit um, that we can get in gear to. And it's so much easier that when we have stopped stretching and we got stuck, if we had the habit of stretching, it's just so much easier to get back into that habit, override the scripts in our heads that tell us that we're not good enough, that we are failing, that we are that oh no, the fact that we've been in on this mission now for a couple of months and things have just fallen apart. I want to give up. Um, we don't have to, because when we start stretching again, when we start exercising connection again, yes, it's going to take time, but you can always fix it. A stage where it no longer is any like repairable anymore is the day that someone passes away. But it also means accountability. So stretch means accountability as well. I need to be accountable for my decisions, my choices, the things that I have done. I'm not allowed to justify the situation. Yes, I can explain in the sense that, you know what, I am so sorry I haven't been paying attention. I really messed up. Uh, it was hectic. My mind wasn't at what I was doing, and I was just trying to survive. And in the whole part, I dropped the ball on you, and I'm sorry for that. Can you forgive me? Nowhere is the child to blame for the disconnect that comes from the lack of stretch. We have to be accountable to our kids and to ourselves. When they're going through the developmental leaps, when they start pulling away, we are the adults. We are the ones that's supposed to be there. One thing that I remember vividly from my childhood is there was a lot of disconnect in the household that I was raised in. And in a certain sense, I just started feeling like my sport, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what sport I do. My parents are really not never there. Not necessarily due to a lack of necessarily of their interest, but just that's just how life was at that particular point in time. However, I had a younger brother who was struggling. Like he had a very difficult childhood, like first couple of years of his life, and therefore the whole family kind of focused on just keeping him happy, keeping him alive, and all of that. And what happened is over time, I started accepting that they will be there for him, but they won't be there for me. So that became a script. So when I started doing a sport in high school that my younger brother also did, my parents were very involved in that sport setup. And I initially chose that sport because I wanted my parents to be there. I just wanted my parents just to be there. And when they were there, I was so annoyed because I didn't want that. But the problem is, they were then very involved and there the whole time, something that I wasn't used to. But it was without the stretch, it was without the trying to connect. It was more with the tick boxes in their heads. We need to do this, we need to do this, and yes, they cheered me on, and yes, there was some form of spending time together, but the connection was just never there. And I actually quit the sport to be able to get away of this over involvement. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want to be involved, if you want to create that connection, you have to actually create that connection with communication and with connection, and not being in control necessarily of the relationship, and letting it grow organically, spending time together, creating space for it to grow. You won't, when a plant is suffering, just chuck the whole plant out. You will actually try to find ways to revive the plant, and all of that, and you'll cut off the leaves and you'll spend time nurturing that. The same with our kids. When we are falling apart as a family, or when things are just going, and we start disconnecting completely, when we pause and try to nurture that relationship again, we can't just step into like as if there was a disconnect. We need to gradually build up that trust again and that connection again, to get to where you were before the disconnect broke off. Because when the disconnect happens, the emotional bank goes lower and lower and lower and lower, and later on it goes into a deficit. So it takes more work to get it out of the deficit. You can't immediately just expect it to be here where it was before things disconnected. Or if you've never really done connected parenting, you can't all of a sudden expect, like, okay, but I spent the time with my kid today and I asked about school and we spoke about, various things. My kid gave me like short answers. It was really felt like very unsuccessful. I don't think this is working. It is keeping at it with compassion, with grace, and with that, just reaching out and keeping the door open. And for sometimes taking your tick boxes, your to-do lists, your phone and everything, and just putting it down, taking a deep breath and saying, I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to really listen. I'm here, and actually listening to what your kid has to say. So, guys, if you have any questions about tonight's chat, please drop a comment down below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed what we had to say. It really helps out the channel. And if you have any topic that you would like to discuss, feel free to drop it down in the comments. I would love to really connect with you as well and grow with you in on this parenting journey. Please stay safe, and I'll see you guys again in 2 weeks' time. I have one last update before I say goodnight. My back stuff, my shelves and stuff has arrived. So the dream and the hope is that we will be able to set it up. So I'll hopefully soon, like really, really, really soon, be able to set up some photos for you guys in Instagram on what it looks like, what the studio setup stuff will be. It has been a very slow process in getting everything there. Oh, thank you very much. I love you too, and I hope everything is safe where you guys are. Um, and it's so yes, we finally being able to set it up. I'm super excited. I've got this dream in my head of what I want it to look like, and then I can finally have my studio, and then things will just be a little bit easier. So guys, go out, go do the exercise with your kids. Remember to stretch, and remember to stay accountable to them and to yourselves. Stay safe, wash your hands. I want to say wash your hands, wear your mask, but where some places are out of like not wearing masks anymore. But if you can and you are allowed to get vaccinated, please do get vaccinated. Part of being a conscious parent is not just caring just about yourself, but about the people and the world around you. So please go out and get vaccinated. Love you all. Have a good one.